Outside, the branches of the plane trees strained the bright mid-autumn sunlight, their shadows casting a pretty pattern on the pavement. There was a light wind, too, that made the leaves dance. "You like this music, huh?" Phoebe asked as she reached across him for some sachets of sugar. His coffee's arrived. "It's bossa nova," he said, as if it was an explanation, only she didn't understand it. "Hey, I also like Spanish music." "Huh?" he muttered, as he balanced his tray. "It's Brazilian." He didn't even look at her, though she was glad he didn't, because if he had, it would have been a you-are-nothing look, the kind of quick glance she had become used to since arriving in Shanghai, people from high up looking down on her. Brazil and Spain were nearly the same anyway. They were in a Western-style coffee bar just off Huaihai Lu. The streets were busy. It was a Saturday. But the week no longer divided neatly into weekend and weekday for Phoebe. It had ceased to do so ever since she arrived in Shanghai a few weeks prior to this. Every day tumbled into the next without meaning, as they had done for too long now. She didn't even know what she was doing in this part of town. She couldn't afford anything in the shops, and her Italian coffee cost more than the shirt she was wearing. It was a big mistake to have come here. Her plan was so stupid. What did she think she would accomplish? Maybe she would have to reconsider everything. "Phoebe Chen Aiping, why are you so afraid all the time? Do not be afraid. Failure is not acceptable. You must raise yourself up and raise up your entire family." She had started keeping a diary. Every day she would write down her darkest fears and craziest ambitions. It was a technique she'd learnt from a self-help master one day in Guangzhou, as she waited in a noodle shop, killing time just after she had been to the human resources market. A small TV had been set on top of the glass counter next to jars of White Rabbit sweets. But at first she did not pay attention. She thought it was just the news. Then she realized that it was a DVD of an inspirational life teacher, a woman who talked about how she had turned her life around and now wanted to show the rest of us how we too could transform our lowly, invisible existence into a life of eternal happiness and success. Phoebe liked the way the woman looked straight at her, holding her gaze so steadily that Phoebe felt embarrassed, shamed by her own failure, the complete lack of even the tiniest achievement in her life. The woman had shimmering, lacquered hair that was classy but not old-fashioned. She showed how a mature woman can look beautiful and successful even when no longer in her first springtime, as she put it herself, laughing. She had so many wise things to say, so many clever sayings and details on how to be successful. If only Phoebe had had a pen and paper, she would have written down every single one, because now she cannot remember much, except the feeling of courage the woman had given her, words about not being afraid, of being on one's own, far from home. It was as if she had looked into Phoebe's head and listened to all the anxieties that were spinning around inside, as if she had been next to Phoebe as she lay awake at night, wondering how she was going to face the next day. Phoebe felt a release, as if someone had lifted a great mountain of rocks from her shoulders, as if someone had said, "You are not alone. I understand your troubles. I understand your loneliness. I am also like you." And Phoebe thought, "The moment I have some money, the first thing I am going to buy is your book. I will not even buy an LV handbag or a new HTC smartphone. I am going to buy your words of wisdom and study them the way some people study the Bible." The book was called Secrets of a 5-Star Billionaire. This is something Phoebe would never forget. One tip that did stick in her mind was the diary, which the woman did not call a diary but a journal of your secret self, in which you would write down all your black terrors, everything that made you fearful and weak, alongside everything you dream of. You must have more positive dreams than burdensome fears. Once you write something in this book, it cannot harm you anymore, because the fears are conquered by the dreams on the opposite page. So when you are successful, you can read this